Hello, everyone. We're here at Performance Incorporated with Joe Garafolo. He's going to tell us all about this fancy exercise place.
Um, okay, well, so Performance Incorporated, let me begin where it began. So when I was younger, I was obsessed with being a pilot. And I wanted to be a pilot like up to like maybe 10 years old. And I found out you needed glasses. I needed glasses. And then I realized I couldn't be a pilot. And I was like so bummed out.
That happened to my dad.
Yeah? Same
So
thing?
he was, what do you call it, colorblind. So
Oh,
he
so you
couldn't
couldn't
do
be a
it.
pilot.
Yeah.
I was so bummed out. So I went down to my basement. I tried to figure something else I'd want to do. And I did like performance of planes at that time. And I thought about, human performance and working in terms of like working with the human body and performing. But back then, there was really not much of that going on. So I kind of thought about it. I let it go. And then years later, I went to my cousin's house and I lifted 25 pounds over my head. And he goes, God, you're strong. And I'm like, yeah? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, are you serious? So of course I'm like, wow. So I'm like, Dad, you gotta buy me weights. And then he bought me a 110-pound weight set. I just sat in the corner by itself. And I looked at it.
The old weeder set.
Plastic. He said, what are you gonna do with this? I said, I'm gonna lift. So I lifted as a young kid, and I just kept on lifting and lifting, lifting, and I started to apply my interest in performance to human performance. I tried to get every book I could back then to read about it. Of course, my coach took one of my favorite books. That's I had on the University of Hawaii. Anyway, so what I did is I ended up becoming an athlete in football, and I started participating in wrestling also, and I was very successful. And mainly because I was just strong. I started at a young age, and I was very strong. And from that strength, I got a lot of confidence and a lot of accolades in sports. And that's how I got my whole start in performance training.
Now, you also played college ball, right?
No, I did
Oh, you
not.
did?
No, I went to the University of Nebraska for academics. People were like, no, it was for football. Fordham wanted me to go for football. But Nebraska had said they didn't recommend it because it's a big school. They didn't recommend I went out there. But I went out there for education because they had one of the top strength and conditioning programs in the country, right?
Probably because of the football.
Yeah, the whole thing. I mean,
Right.
in 1978, NSCA was started there, and then I got there in 1980. So it was a perfect timing. So I wanted to go for academics. And it was a great education. And when I came out of Nebraska, I realized this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to combine, exercise and nutrition to enhance human performance.
So what did you do? You didn't start this right away, did you? Or what did you do at the beginning?
In the beginning, I started a company called Diet Pros, which is all about like nutrition, and then I realized I wanted the other half of it, which was the human performance side of it, and that's when I went into Performance Incorporated.
And so what year did you start this company or this place?
That's a good question. Well, see, first I did private practice nutrition for 8 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, I started Performance Incorporated. So like 1990, maybe.
Okay, all right. So that's like 30,
Yeah, it's about
32
30.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a long time.
yeah.
So I'm sure you learned something in 32 years.
And I've had everybody. I mean, I've had from like athletes to people who are older, people who have different type of challenges to overcome, and no matter what they have, applying performance training has been something that they really appreciate it and they really gained from, and so did I by watching them.
And if anyone hears any noise, there's people actually working out to the left of us. Anyone dropping weights, that's the noise
No
you're
one's
gonna
getting
hear.
beat up in the back.
Yeah, no one's getting beat up in the closet. It's just people working out, and we're in the office talking about it. So, did you start with the athletes first, and then you got into the other stuff, or what did you get started with first?
I started with the athletes first, but then other people started to come, and I started taking on other clients, and it just grew from there. And then it would be, 1 hour I would have a high school linebacker walk in. The next hour, an 80-year-old person would walk in. The next hour, and that's how it was. It became very eclectic and mixed. But that background, I mean, I learned so much from everybody, that I applied to each of their own areas.
So, is the biggest change from, let's say, 30 years ago to today that you noticed in how
30 years ago,
approaches?
the information really wasn't as available as it is now. So most people that any information from a coach, they just listen to somebody and they train with what that information
Or
was. Magazines, Muscle and Fitness. And then came the advent of the personal trainer and the strength coaches who came on the scene, and they started to train people. And I think one of the biggest changes that's happened is that kids have learned just to go to their strength coach or to their personal trainer for a session or their sessions, and that's it. Where prior to that, the athlete was doing everything on their own, and so it became a different type of an athlete, you know. And when we look at what's going on today, I always tell kids, what you do with us is only part of it, but you still have to train on your own, because there's something about that searching in your soul that you do when you do stuff on your own also. So I think the biggest change is that back then it was like you were kind of on your own for the most part, and today there's people leading you, and some of the kids don't look on their own.
Right. And if you're on your own and you kind of get developed any bad habits, you probably brought them with you, and you have to undo that and then teach them from the scratch.
Right. There was no way to really rectify it until you got, maybe it was too late or too many reps doing the wrong thing, you know, back in the older days. Today we can correct it, but then we have to hope the kids do more reps to get it in, you know.
But it helps to learn the right way and
Absolutely.
not get into bad groove, so to speak, and then develop injuries or
right.
Practice
perfect idea, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure many of shoulders were injured doing silly stuff.
Oh, in the area of weight training, I mean, there's been so much that has changed in terms of how we apply different loads to people and how we apply rest periods for them to recover, and nutritional type of strategies that are out today. Just you can't even compare it to what was back then.
Yeah, it was more trial and error. Just try to see what works, and if you didn't hurt yourself, it's okay.
He looks good in the magazine,
Yeah.
You know. But performance was always interesting, because I always noticed that performance was a different aspect than just bodybuilding. You know, in the books I got one from the University of Hawaii, which is a great book on you know, doing power cleans and Olympic lifts and speed development. And I was very fascinated by that, and I saw the difference between that and bodybuilding, and I want to know more about that performance training.
Well, there's a huge difference between, there's somebody dropped in the back, but between looking good and being able to actually do what type of sport you're doing or activity you're doing. Because you can look good and be just not able to. I mean, many people look much better than Tom Brady, but how many can throw the ball like Tom Brady?
Right. Well, the idea is that if you train for bodybuilding, you get a good body, but you may not be able to perform. But if you train as a performance athlete, you'll be able to perform, and guess what? You also get a good body. So it's becoming very accepted today. It's for everybody to performance train. I think the New York Times had it a few weeks ago about performance training being the future of how people are going to train.
Well, it's a different goal.
Yeah,
depends what your point is. What are you trying to achieve, and so you have to tailor what you do to whatever your client's goals are.
Right, what their interests are. But most people, when you get down to it, even if they're bodybuilding, they have to be able to move and have fluidity in how they move on stage, and so mobility is important, flexibility is important, even for bodybuilders, you know. But for athletes, we absolutely need that. We cannot have an athlete that's being stiff. I mean, you never see average boxing trainers years ago would come out. They would almost be like this when they saw a trainer, because they would think, don't make my fighter tight, you know. But now we know, as strength coaches, that we need to improve power and performance, not just getting them massive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a guest. Hi, Alexander. You want to come in and say hi?
Want to get on the show?
You want to join us as the youngest member of the gym? You know, wave. Just wave to that thing over there.
What thing?
That thing over there.
They actually like TV, huh?
So what type of services do you provide, and what type of clients do you deal with on a regular basis?
We have a diversity of clients. I mean, we have everyone from like young kids to old folks to people who have physical challenges to people who are, you know, high school and college athletes. But we offer services that I think will meet their needs. So, for example, strength and conditioning helps them get stronger, right? Mobility, flexibility helps them move. We have boxing for actually for building self-confidence and self-defense with Champ, who's unbelievable. Michelle is great at yoga. She's been studying it her whole life, and she brings a whole unique twist to how to breathe and how to work with the vagus nerve, and she's just unreal. And we are also working on bringing someone in for dance because I believe that building confidence for young kids is important. So bringing dance in, whether it's for a kid or whether it's for somebody who's just trying to work on Parkinson's, it's just a great adjunct to the program.
So what's the percentage of athletes versus non-athletes do you have usually?
It varies. I think right now maybe it's like 25%, 30% athletes, and the rest.
Okay, so you do mostly is like regular.
It is now, but it changes. Like as now we're coming out of football seasons, and those kids come back in, so it always fluxes.
So if I come in as a client and I want to get started, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
either as a regular person, as an athlete, whatever, what kind of packages or how do you offer? Do you offer single sessions? Do you offer like packages? How does that work?
Typically, the first time you come in, we do an orientation. We show you what we do, make sure you like it here, make sure things are a good fit for us. It's try fit, and if things work out really well, and we think it's going to go forward, we then bring our first private in. And that's to catch you up on all the basic fundamentals. And if you really are good at them and you know those fundamentals, we can advance you on to other programs. If not, we keep you in private a little longer. But when you go into other programs, we have small group training. We have team training where you actually train with like 3 or 4 people as part of a team, which is kind of neat. And we also have co-training in privates, too, if you want to stay with that.
So you don't have to commit. You can just come in and get an intro thing and then see what does this fit for you or doesn't fit.
Right. You come in and you see, if this is the right fit for you, what we do, because we do a lot of metrics here. So we look at a lot of performance parameters. So it's definitely evidence-based, and you have to see if you like our style, how we're doing things here. And if you like that, then we just have to make sure that you have the skill set to go into the level that you want to go into. So if you want to go into team training, you need to have a certain skill level to be trained with 5 people. But if you don't, we work with you privately until you have a decent skill set, and then you can go to a larger group.
That makes sense because you don't want to have people with uneven skills working at
Right.
the same time. So you want to keep them on the same level.
You end up doing a private with that one person during a group session, so you don't want to do that.
No, yeah, it doesn't make sense. They have to be in the same, roughly same.
And we also use Team Builder, which allows us to create workouts for them, even if they're not here. If they want to go somewhere else and train at another facility or on vacation, they have those workouts all designed through us, and we see it back in real time through Team Builder.
Well, Team Builder is a software.
Yeah, it's a software. It's used a lot in the NFL. I think Tampa Bay Buccaneers use it. It's used a lot in the pros. It's because it gives you a lot of data on that side of it. So if you want to analyze the attendance rates, if you want to analyze completion rates, volume load rates, which is how much weight you're moving, we can look at all that and determine where our clients are going statistically.
Then people would have access to the website with all the data, and they can, even if they're on vacation, they can log in and put their own. They can do a workout at whatever gym is in a hotel or whatever, and they can keep it up.
They can text us back and ask a question, or just send us pictures of the gym and how can we modify the workout for this place.
That's certainly you couldn't do that back in the 90s.
Yeah, so I mean, whatever they really need, Some people come in just to learn the fundamentals, then go on Team Builder. Others come in for team training. Team training is something I want to credit Ryan Higgins for. Ryan brought that in a while back, and he felt like he wanted to train people more than twice a week. And to make it affordable, we just had people all split that together in a small team. And they all work together toward goals, and it's great. It's a great program.
That makes sense because it's certainly more affordable to split it that way, and it's more efficient for him.
We see better results with it too.
Right, so that's cool, and it's always nice to have more than one person.
Yeah,
having a training partner is helpful.
Yeah, people know someone's going to be there, so they have to be there.
Yeah, and it keeps you in the pace too, because if you're working out alone, you can take a 3-5 minute break.
Yeah, and one of the things that we do, I mean, people have to be serious about being here because if you come in here and you're not really doing the right thing, you're really taking from other people's workouts. So we screen that out very quickly. So everybody here, we have a good time. Don't get me wrong, but they make sure they get their work done, and we guarantee results. It's 100% guaranteed.
So it's a result based because you keep all that data. Now besides Team Builder, which is software, but you have to enter the data. What do you use to measure I mean, besides just knowing if it's 20 pounds, 30 pounds, that's easy to keep track of. But how about, let's say, speed or whatever?
So for speed, we use photo gates that give you an actual time which is hard to really get a fast time on because it's really accurate. And we use photo gates for sprints. We use vertical jump pad for measuring their vertical jump, which is also very accurate. We use calipers for body fat testing. And we use something called BioBit for measuring balance and their ability to move and the range of motion in joints. And it's done with an accelerometer that you wear. And as you move around, the accelerometer picks up the rate that you're moving and how you're moving and gives us information back. So we really see, as a matter of fact, we had one guy who had really bad balance and he worked hard at it and his balance got really good. And then he stopped doing it for a couple of months. We went back testing him again. It was like completely bad again. So we learned that you got to continue to do balance if you want to keep your balance.
Yeah,
you know,
use it or lose it kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not like with kids where they have balance, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to keep doing it.
Yeah, and you know, but once people realize that, they go, okay, I got to keep balance in. So they use it for active rest in between sets. They'll work on a balance drill.
Do you do a lot of balance work with the elderly?
Yeah.
Because that's important.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I mean, we have a big problem with people falling. Mm-hmm. And typically we lose muscle mass, we gain body fat, we lose strength, we lose agility, coordination, and then finally with that comes loss of balance. And so to bring that back and keep these people moving and balancing is a very big thing, whether it's someone who has Parkinson's or just someone who's getting older.
Yeah, well, that's always the case. Somebody falls, breaks the hip, breaks this and that, and it's all downhill from there. So
Yeah. Columbia did a study not too long ago, and we're looking at the fact that a lot of times the hips break and people fall. So bone density is another thing that we do here. We work very closely with their doctors, and we take a look at where their bone density score is on their DEXA scan, and we track very closely to where their scan is after training them on a strength protocol.
Weight-bearing exercise, it would help your bone keep the calcium deposits, all that stuff.
Yeah, and we go heavy too. We go heavy with even some older folks. We go pretty heavy with certain things. Yeah, so it's very interesting what people are doing now, which they didn't do years ago. You know, when they were older, they just got older. But now people are doing some pretty cool things. We have people who are like 80 years old who are stronger now than they were in their entire life, which is cool. You know.
Yeah, that's a huge change, because years ago they would just put you in a nursing home and tell you to sit there and watch TV or something.
Would you fade out?
You have some peace soup and watch TV. And now it's like people are actually doing
and people
stuff.
Are getting. I mean, people are starting to get it. Like you have to just take care of your body, because after, like, I don't know, in your 30s practically, you start going down this slide, driven by testosterone dropping, you know, which triggers loss of muscle mass. And then that triggers increased body fat, and there you go with that slide. So by you training, you prevent that from happening.
Yeah, it's about quality of life. Like, what's the point of being 100 if you can't do anything?
Exactly. You know, you don't want to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah, so, doesn't seem like a good option.
But I tell you, it's interesting, because I when I first went in this field as a strength coach, my main job was to work with athletes. But as I got more people in my practice, it really became interesting to see how much you can help someone who's facing getting older, right? And you never think of that as being something, but that's more than a game, for God's sakes. I mean, a game's a game, but this is like you're facing
that's
like
life.
A scary life, you know, if you don't get your act together. So it became really interesting, and the older folks take it serious. The ones that are here, they take it very serious.
Why would it matter? I mean, you know, because you know what the alternative is.
Right.
You'd be sitting around doing nothing.
Exactly. Their game is a big game.
It's like whatever time you have left, it might as well be good time instead of just doing nothing.
And the kids, we do a lot of neat things with the kids. We do a velocity-based training, which measures the speed of the bar, and that really seems to get the kids focused and centered toward what's happening in the lift, and how to do it with proper form. And so these technologies have really helped a lot. From, like we were saying from earlier, from back in the day, we had none of those technologies. We said, like, wait to put it on you.
Well, you also get, if you can measure it, right, which is what you do, then you know where your sticking point is. Because some people have a problem at the bottom, some people have the top of the movement.
Yeah.
Usually not the middle, but it depends.
But we can analyze
you
it,
can see
and
it,
then they see it, and so with the more data that we have, the clients really like it. If you overdo it, it's too much. But if we just give it to them enough to just motivate them, they really go after it. You know.
Is there a way to? Well, I guess with all the data you're putting in, you definitely get to see if they're overtraining, because the performance is going to drop.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So one thing would be morning heart
rate,
right? So if we see an increase of 10 beats per minute in the morning heart rate. That could be a sign of overtraining. But also performance parameters like what are happening to some of the numbers in the gym, to even their attitude. Are they starting to get grumpy? You know what I mean? These are all factors that we need to look at. And sometimes we'll deload them and pull them back a little bit.
Yeah, well, that was even back in before all this stuff existed. The periodization that came out of like the Soviet system, right?
Well, the funny thing is,
a hunch that would work.
When I was a kid, I remember looking at the bar and saying like, "Wow!" I remember I benched like 370 or something, but it was slow. I'm like, but the speed is different. And I'm like, does anyone look at that? And then I said, there's so many scientists. I'm sure they looked at it already. And I just totally like moved on. Well, years later, I found out in the Soviet Union, they were looking at the speed of the bar called velocity-based training, which is what we're doing here now. And then we brought it here, and Dr. Mann from the United States, he's really went and taken it from the Soviet Union and brought it here, and we're doing great things with it, you know.
Well, even in West Side, the Louis Simmons gym, I mean, he passed away recently.
Yeah,
but they were doing a lot of speed training, and no one was doing that back in the day.
Yeah, he was really ahead of his time for not being involved in anything academically. You know, he did his own.
Yeah, just figured it out.
Yeah, he was something else. That was a big loss.
Yeah, interesting guy. Yeah, I read a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, he really did some amazing things. Yeah, I know a lot of professors end up looking to his stuff later on.
Because it's your whole experience. If you're keeping track of like he was and they'll have in mind to figure it out. It's like what happens with this and that.
And cause and effect.
Yeah, you can't really replicate that in the lab.
Well, they used to have something years ago called the suits, and I think it was the suits and the sweats. And so like all of our PhDs would get together on one part and all of our like trainers on the other part, and they would all bring up concepts. And when the trainers part was that if we didn't create these techniques, you'd have nothing to research. You know what I mean? And then these guys would research and determine if it really worked or not, you know. But I don't know if they still do that anymore, you know.
Well, it seems like they should probably do more. If they're not doing it, they should do it, because it's like it's a different world. They need to be studied and combined. Otherwise, you kind of don't get the other half of the picture.
Yeah, one's creating and one's kind of assessing it, you know.
Mm-hmm. So, well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
We're
thank you for having me.
gonna do a bunch of other ones, introducing different people, different areas of the performance lab.
Yeah, but you know, Champ, like I said, Champ is phenomenal. I mean, you'll just see when he's just phenomenal. His knowledge in boxing is unbelievable. His personality, he's just really. I met him at Brookdale because of COVID, and he was down there training somebody. I'm like, who is that? I just knew he was different. That's Champ, you know. And I said, listen, would you mind if I got to talk to me? Well, the guy gave me his number. I called him, and we became friends. And Champ's been working here for a year now, but he's unbelievable. Michelle with yoga is unbelievable. Ryan Higgins, who does PEMF, which is pulse electromagnetic frequency, and he puts it's a magnetic charge into your muscle, which has a phenomenal effect on healing. Ryan does that. John does a lot of work with strength and conditioning. He has one girl here who he had to lose a lot of weight and get in shape. So you meet John, he's unreal. So the whole team is really good. They've all experienced, they've all been around, and they've been around working with clients.
All right, so we'll do a bunch of other ones, but
Yeah.
everyone introducing the area. And thank you again for giving
thank you.
the overall picture of the place, and we'll keep going.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Joe.